Welcome to the Explainer. We love digging into some really fascinating reports and studies here. And today, we've got one that's, well, it's pretty out there. We're unpacking a 2023 report commissioned by a company called Leela Quantum Tech. And it asks a pretty wild question. Can a small box actually change the energy field inside an electric car?
So yeah, let's just jump right in. We're talking about a report that makes a really big claim. The idea is that this thing can neutralize electromagnetic fields, EMF, inside an electric vehicle. Now, the question itself sounds simple enough, right? But believe me, the way they go about testing it gets pretty wild pretty fast. So what is this device and what did the study actually find?
And here it is. This is the device at the heart of the study, the Leela Quantum Infinity Bloc. The report, which, by the way, was commissioned by the people who make it, describes it as a quantum energy generator. The whole point of the study was to test if it could really impact the energy field inside a high-end electric car.
All right, so a quantum box for cars? What's the deal here? Before we even look at the results, we've got to understand what the study was actually trying to prove. Let's look at the premise.
Okay, so the report lays out its objective pretty clearly. They wanted to test the effectiveness of this Leela Quantum Infinity Bloc. They wanted to see if it can neutralize those electromagnetic interference fields in a luxury electric car. And here's a key detail. The test subject wasn't a person, it was the car itself. And as we mentioned, it's important to remember that this study was commissioned by the company that actually makes the block.
So how in the world do you even test something like this? Well, to understand the results, we first have to wrap our heads around the methodology. And let me tell you, this isn't your typical lab experiment with beakers and Bunsen burners.
At the very heart of this study is a measurement tool they call BESA, which stands for BioEnergetic Informative System Analysis. Now, the report describes this as a way to measure the energetic state of a system. And it's based on concepts you might have heard of from things like acupuncture, specifically these meridian endpoints, which are also known as ting points. So once they get a number from these tests, what does it even mean? Well, this is how they break it down. You can see there's this super specific green zone for optimal regulation, right between 2.0 and 2.39. If your reading is below that, you're in what they call the degenerative or energy deficient zone. And if you go way up past 2.8, that's considered inflammatory or an excess of energy. It's all about hitting that sweet spot. Okay. And this is where things get really, really interesting. So how did they test the car? Well, they didn't. Not directly, anyway. Get this. They tested a photograph of the car. The whole justification for this is the principle of quantum entanglement. The study basically argues that a photo isn't just a picture. It's an energy-informative image that's still connected to the real thing. So let's just let that sink in for a second. The crucial idea here is that testing the photo is the exact same thing as testing the car itself in its quantum field. They're saying what happens to one is reflected in the other. It's a pretty mind-bending concept, but according to this report's methodology, it's totally valid. All right, so let's get into the experiment itself. Now that we know how they planned to measure things, what did they actually do? How did they set this whole thing up? They basically ran 4 different tests. First, they took a baseline photo of the car, just, existing. That's step 1. For step 2, they put the Leela Quantum Bloc inside the car and took another picture. Then, for number 3, they cranked up the EMF by connecting the car to a fast charging station and snapped another photo. And then for the last one, and this is a trip, they took that high EMF photo and literally put the photo itself inside the block for 5 minutes before testing it. So, the big question. What happened? What did the results show? Well, the report really zooms in on the difference between the before and after, specifically the car by itself versus the car with the block inside. Okay, first up, the before state. This is the BESA test on that first baseline photograph, just the car sitting there doing nothing. And the results were, well, pretty dramatic. Look at this. The report states that 95% of the car's energy system was in that degenerative, energy-deficient blue area. Only a tiny 5% was in the green, harmonized zone. All right, now for the after state. This is the test on the second photo, the one they took when the Leela Quantum Bloc was sitting inside the passenger cabin of the car. And wow, this is really the core finding of the whole report. The measurement just completely flipped. 100%, it went to 100% in the green, harmonized area.
I mean, that's a total 180 from the 95% degenerative state they measured just before.
So, a life-promoting field. What does that even mean? What was the final takeaway from this incredible shift in the numbers? What did the researchers actually conclude? Well, this quote from the report really sums it up. It says, "It is shown that the effect of the Leela Quantum Infinity Bloc is able to give the degenerative readings the necessary impulse for harmonization into the life-promoting range." So in other words, they're saying the block gave the car's energy field the push it needed to get out of that negative state and into a positive one.
And the final summary really drives this point home. The report concludes that the luxury electric vehicle now exhibits a life-promoting field. So the idea isn't just that it got rid of something bad, but that it actually created something good. The entire car, according to their data, was putting off this positive, life-promoting energy. So this whole thing leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? Where exactly does quantum theory end and tangible technology begin? I mean, this report, with its really unique methodology and its pretty bold claims, it really pushes the boundaries. It makes you wonder, as we keep exploring this quantum world, what other kinds of technologies like this are we going to see in the future? It's definitely something to think about.